Are we headed to an actual full-blown trade war between the EU and the US?
No. Ultimately, the EU has to retaliate with extra tariffs on US goods, the same amount of money. So we are in the middle then of a trade war which serves nobody, and we should settle this dispute by the instruments of the WTO and not by unilateral and arbitrary measures.
So if I understand correctly, you would argue if the US decides to implement about $11 billion on European products, the EU should do the same with American products, same size.
$11 billion on US products, because we cannot negotiate under pressure. It has to be on a level playing field and with the mechanisms that we have with WTO and not with the Trump type of pressuring partners that is not going with the EU.
So many diplomats and officials here will argue that President Trump in many ways is trying to bully the Europeans, and at one point, if he doesn't remove the threat of tariffs, the EU should simply walk away from the negotiation. Do you agree with that?
Of course, we have started a new approach to have a US-EU trade agreement, but under pressure. And with the pistol on the chest, Europe will not negotiate. It's a no-go, and the Parliament, with a large majority, has expressed itself against negotiations under pressure.
And if you look at some of the products that could see tariffs being slapped on, you look at Airbus, aviation, cars, luxury goods. I just want to focus on something that I hear a lot, which is that ultimately the goal from the US is to get access to the European agricultural market. Ultimately, do you think that's worth the price if we do put an end to the trade tensions?
As I mentioned before, under pressure, there will be not any results with the EU. And I think we have a list of products that would hit as well. Farmers in the US, and both sides would suffer. So we have to come to the table and have to have decent talks and not this bullying that Trump's like to use against anybody in the world, and especially now against partners of the US.
So switching to China, there has been a joint statement today from the EU and China. You both agree to cooperate on WTO terms. It's interesting because we thought there wouldn't be a statement. So what changed between 24 hours? Is this almost a response to Mr. Trump?
So we made clear to China that this is not a feel-good summit, but that there is hard talk. Because we had so many promises, and now we like to see action. And I think the joint statement is a success for the EU because China has moved. And of course, China has not the interest to have a war with the US and with Europe, so that was a good timing. For us, let's say, to tell them, look, come to terms, otherwise you get the same problems with Europe that you have already with the US.
I also want to talk about Huawei, because it's been very much in the news. The European Union is about to roll out 5G. There's a lot of big contracts out there, a lot of money is at stake. Do you think a company like Huawei should have a say in European network strategic sectors?
Now, we have not excluded a company or a country from our 5G networks, but some member states like mine, Germany, and now in a few weeks the EU Commission will really set up a whole conditions and requirements under which a company can apply for these networks. And of course, I think security first, and we are having to have trust in those who go to that 5G network. And of course, China is under suspicion, and we will be very careful.
Germany is a country that you know very well, and well, we all know the German economy has slowed. We know there's big pressure on the exports. We know the German car makers are under a lot of pressure because of Brexit, because of China, so much uncertainty. Do you fear that if we don't get a resolution to the trade story, the German economy ends the year in a recession, ultimately the entire euro area ends the year in a recession?
Now, we are the biggest economy in the European Union, but we are as well vulnerable. We are an export nation. And if we have a war with the US, we have problems with China, we have a no-deal Brexit, then the economy will suffer. And if Germany suffers, the whole EU is suffering. So, of course, that's a turn of European economy.
Tomorrow we have a crucial meeting that could really shape events for months now and ultimately maybe lead to a no-deal Brexit. We understand different countries have different positions. Germany would be inclined to go for a long extension. Is that what you hear when you talk to German officials, that it's best to keep the UK long if that means there's a deal?
Nobody in Germany has an interest in Brexit, but especially not in a no-deal Brexit and a crash. And as Chancellor Merkel was saying, there is a last chance to get a deal, then we should use that last chance. And if there is even a chance that by a longer time there is a rethinking in Great Britain, the better. So I would say that tomorrow night there comes out a statement by the EU to give extra time for UK, but under conditions. We have to know what they want to do to really come to terms and not have every 3 weeks a crisis management.